Let me ask you a question. You ever been surrounded by a bunch of guys that wanted to kick your ass? What would you do? What can you do? They're in your face. They're cursing at you, shoving you. They're so close, you can smell their breath. What would you do? Well, let me tell you what Jack did and why he ended up in handcuffs at the end of the evening. Welcome to the G-Spot, where we talk about real criminal cases. Why the name? Because I'm Mr. G, and this is my spot. I've been a criminal defense lawyer for 29 years, and I've got stories. So sit back, relax, and let me take you into my world. So imagine, it's 2 a.m. in the morning on a Friday night. Clubs are beginning to let out. People are walking to their cars. Jack and his buddy Mike are in the parking, walking to their car. And all of a sudden, Jack sees a girl he used to know years back. They lived in the same apartment building when they were kids. Haven't seen her since then. He looks her way and starts yelling out her name, telling her, hey, I haven't seen you in ages. How's it going? What's new? Before she could respond, her boyfriend is in Jack's face, literally in his face, yelling at him, cursing at him, telling him, don't you talk to my girl. The usual nonsense. Jack is trying to explain. He's telling the guy, look, I haven't seen her in ages. She's just a neighbor. In fact, we lived in the same apartment building. Our parents used to be friends. What's the big deal? But the guy is having none of it. He's shoving Jack, literally on top of him. Before Jack knows it, the boyfriend's 11 friends are there too. They surround Jack and Mike and start pushing them around. So again, I ask you, what would you do in that situation? Well, let me tell you a little bit about Jack and Mike before we go on. You see, the guys met when they were kids, 13, 14 years of age, at a boxing gym. And they boxed together for about 3 years. Jack is about 5'10", about 180 pounds. And Mike, his buddy, is about 6'4", about a string beat, like 130, 135 pounds weight. Now, they train, but they're not pro boxers. They're not even amateur boxers. But 3 years of boxing is plenty to give you a solid foundation. And this is something these 12 guys did not know. So, as the pushing and shoving continued, and inevitably somebody threw the first punch, all hell broke loose. It was literally like a scene out of an action movie. Punch, flip, another punch, the guy goes down. Pull back, punch, guy goes down. Roll, punch, guy goes down. It was literally insane to watch. And watch we did when we got the security footage. When the cops got there, it was a war zone. Each one of these 12 guys was in a certain level of consciousness or semi-consciousness. Some were trying to get up, others were still on the ground. Now, when cops get there, right, to a scene like this, they have to make a determination. Who is the aggressor and who is the victim? They have 12 guys, all beaten up, on the ground, more or less, and 2 guys standing. They've barely broken a sweat. Now, the odds are not what you usually see, right? 2 beating up 12 doesn't really make sense usually, right? So the cops are a little torn. They don't know who the aggressor is. They're talking to witnesses. They can't really figure it out. Until one of the witnesses says that she saw Mike run up to one of those guys after the fight was over run up to one of those guys as he was literally trying to get off the ground, semi-conscious, and Mike sucker kicked him in the face. That's what made up the mind of the cops to arrest both Jack and Mike. Cases were filed. Jack's case we managed to dismiss. Mike had a slightly different outcome. So you see, he was charged with felony with GBI, with intent to cause great bodily injury, as a strike. That's very serious. We ended up dismissing the GBI and knocking the case down to a misdemeanor simple battery. And so, what are some of the lessons here? Well, first of all, I'll give you some legal lessons and then some life lessons. What's the legal lesson here? The law says you can only use as much force as is necessary in order to stop the initial attack against you. Anything above that is excessive force. Once the attack stops, you may not retaliate. You may not go after the guy to teach him a lesson like Mike did, okay? That's retaliation. Second lesson. When the cops turned to Mike and they asked him, "Hey, Mike, why the hell did you kick that guy in the face?" And Mike answered. He said, "Because the guy needed a lesson." Okay. Maybe he did. Maybe he did need a lesson. But saying that is to the cops is literally sealing your fate. My suggestion to you is do not speak with the cops. Not because you're trying to hide something, but because there's always a backstory. And when you've been through an experience like Jack and Mike just had, your thoughts are all scrambled. Chronology of the events is completely off. You're going to blurt something out, say some nonsense that's going to come back to bite you, which is what Mike did. Okay? In actuality, we were actually able to show that the guy was getting up in order to come back at Mike. Okay? He was not entirely out. He still had some fighting left in him. And we were able to knock the case down, dismiss the GBI allegation, etc. Okay? But really, you don't want to talk to the cops. Not then. You're not hiding anything again. But what you should do is shut up, hire a lawyer, and then if you want to talk to the cops, go and talk to the cops with the lawyer and have the lawyer talk to them. Because anything the lawyer says is hearsay, cannot be used against you. Anything you say is an admission, maybe an admission against interest. Okay? And some life lessons. Whenever you get into a situation like this, there are two issues here. The ability to fight and the will to fight. The ability to fight is your skill. Do you have the skill to fight? Second question is, do you have the will to do that? Do you have the desire? Are you too scared to use your skills? So in this situation, both Jack and Mike didn't really have the will to fight initially. Although they had the skill, they wanted to avoid this, but then they had no choice. The other guys had all the will in the world, probably because there were a lot of them, but had absolutely no skill. If you would have seen the security footage like I have, you would have seen these guys literally waving their arms around, hoping to hit something. It was funny to watch, especially against two skilled boxers. So this is how it can go. Just saying hello to a neighbor that you haven't seen in years can land you in custody with a criminal case on top of everything. So this is the G-spot. This is where we discuss real, true criminal stories. This is a raw look on our legal system. Next time, I'll tell you guys about a high school prank that went, well, you'd have to stay tuned for that one. Thank you for tuning in.